Hey, this is Greg Saenz, drummer for Excel, the Dwarves, and John Garcia of Caius, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Big Strix Vinyl Records and Sports Cards, located in Rock Island, Illinois. New, vintage, and previously owned. You can find it at Big Strix. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Greg Saenz, currently the drummer for John Garcia and the Band of Gold, original founding member of Excel and My Head, and has also worked with the Dwarves and Yawning Man.
Yeah, let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Greg, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Greg, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi, Jeff. Hey, thanks for having me, both of you guys. I appreciate it, man. It's fab.
Well, you know, the crazy thing about it is that, you know, Jeff and I have been doing the podcast together here. The podcast has been going on for 10 years, but Jeff and I have been doing it, for the last, 6 years? Yeah. And so, you know, for some reason, I always tried to search you out, but I could never find you. And then finally, I just stumbled upon you one day, and I thought, I'm going to send him an invitation. And lo and behold, you responded. And we're like, holy crap, this is going to happen. So we're so excited to have you tonight.
That's cool. Thanks, man. You know, I was, I have friends who do interviews, and I hear things going down and telling their stories or telling their things. And I was thinking, God, I'd love to tell my stuff, but I just figured, people have heard so many stories who'd want to hear another one, but here we are. And I'm just happy to share, man.
Well, it's going to happen. So let's get involved with this right now. So, help me out. Is it the past 7 years you've been drumming for John Garcia and the Band of Gold? Is that correct? Is it 7 years or is it more than that?
It's more than 2014 is when I joined John's solo band. So I've been with him since then. It hasn't been like steady, 2-3 tours a year type stuff. John has other bands that he's done in the past, so he goes out and does his other things when those come up, when he gets offers. But as far as the solo band goes, since 2014, I've been with him since then because, I saw no reason not to. I love his singing. I've always loved his voice when he was in Caius, and now I've lived out here in the desert since 1999, and eventually met John and joined his band. So I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that's cool. And he likes bluesy rock, and So I've just kind of stuck with him over the years. We've had some member changes, but he always seems to call me back and go, "You still want to do stuff?" And I tell him, "Yeah."
That's so cool. Well, with that being said, can you give our listeners a little insight on the origins of the Band of Gold and your involvement in it? And have you been involved with the band since the inception of this whole ordeal, or give us more information about it?
Yeah, John went solo after the whole, they did the Caius Lives thing, and they did the Vistacino after their legal issues with the Caius name, and then John eventually just decided to go solo and recorded out in Palm Springs in 2014, I think it was, and then eventually put a band together. I didn't record on his record that he recorded in Palm Springs, but some of the studio musicians that were there, were all kind of vying for the position to get in his band. And one of the guys who ended up playing bass, his name is Mike Pygmy. I had played with Mike in a band out here, and he just called me one night and said, you're going to come in and audition with Garcia because we've had a few guys come in and they're not cutting it. I think you could do it. And he said, can you come in tomorrow night? And I said, yeah. And I just went in and we played. And then he tried out a couple other drummers afterwards. And a couple weeks later, he called me up and threw the gig at me. And I said, of course. And then we went on tour and did tours for several years and eventually made a record in 2019. That is called John Garcia and the Band of Gold, which is the title of the record. However, at some point, the promoter started just assuming, well, that's the name of the project. So we became John Garcia and the Band of Gold. And people said, it's kind of pretentious, isn't it? I had to explain that Band of Gold reference is actually about a wedding band. Yeah. It's not necessarily, it's kind of named after that old song by Frida Payne, that Band of Gold, that old soul song from the 70s. So John wanted to call the record that. We became John Garcia Band of Gold, which we laughed at because at some point they were calling us the Band of Old, and stuff like that. It was funny, but that's kind of how it started, and now here we are. And our guitar player now in John Garcia Solo, or John Garcia Band of Gold, is his guitar player that he's played with for many years, a band called Hermano. A guy by the name of Dave Angstrom. He's now playing guitar, and the bass player is Billy Cordell, who did a stint with Caius Lives, and he was in Yawning Man. After Mario left, I had toured with Yawning Man with Mario. Mario left to do his other side projects, and Billy stepped back into Yawning Man. And out of my touring with Yawning Man with Billy, John, that was one of the times when John had kind of dissolved the solo thing and then wanted to rekindle it, called me and said, you want to come back and play some drums? And I'm thinking of calling Billy to play bass. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, yes, call Billy. I didn't even have to throw his name out there. It just happened, because I kind of wanted it to go that way when he called. And so that's how now Billy and I are now with John.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Did you have a story from the recording of the John Garcia and the Band of Gold, the 2019 album? Is that something, did you guys go into a studio at that time, or was it or sharing tracks? How did it work?
We had a rehearsal space that we rented out, kind of a good, decent sized office space. That was our rehearsal room. We turned that into our studio and recorded the record there, brought in a nice modern Eve type board and got some good mics and recorded in our recording studio with a couple local cats, old friends of John's, guy by the name of Steve Feldman, who used to do Monkey Studios, who recorded a lot of the old Palm Springs bands and worked with early Queens and stuff. But the quality of it wasn't up to par, and there was some friction with how it was done and the mix. And so out of that, John took the masters and handed it to Chris Goss of Masters of Reality, his old friend. And Chris Goss went in and did some stuff and worked some magic and made it palatable, let's say. The original mixes were kind of kind of rough. And so Chris Goss fixed it. So it was cool to, for me, being a old Masters of Reality fan, I was just happy to have my name on a record with Chris Goff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that band.
So most of our listeners will immediately think of Caius when they hear the name John Garcia, but talk to us about the Band of Gold and how it compares and it differs from the Caius sound for people that maybe are not familiar with John Garcia and the Band of Gold.
Definitely, Caius was very experimental and more musical, more atmospheric, and reflective of the desert vibe at that time. And even now, it continues with the whole desert revival and desert rock thing. But a lot more instrumentation, a lot more spacey stuff, and less John was kind of my take of the old Caius records. Whereas now, the songs are shorter, a little more powerful, and there's more John. There's more choruses, and it's a little bluesier, maybe even a little more Motown shuffle underneath, or a Latin vibe at times. But it's not that experimental Caius sound that I think some people expected initially. But it's a little more leans a little more towards the cult. John's a big cult fan, and he's really into Black Pumas, and so he tries to incorporate some soul into it and some groove, which I love as a drummer because it's just right up my alley.
For sure,
it's fun to groove along with that, and it's still heavy. It's still guitar dominant, and we do have our moments of that aggressive desert sound. But it's got to come naturally. We can't just be like, let's write a heavy desert song that blows away, the Green Machine or something, And when we do play the Caius songs, we really try to keep it real, like the records, but not note for note, and kind of shorten the distance and the instrumental parts, try and condense them down for the live show and make it our own, but still pay a lot of respect to what people expect to hear because it's the records that they know.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, John and yourself and the rest of the band are going to be heading back to the studio for a new John Garcia album in the Band of Gold. I don't want to forget about the Band of Gold here. But what can your fans expect from this new material? Have you any ideas what it's going to sound like this time, or is it going to stay traditional?
God, I think we're kind of falling back on 90s roots. It's heavy. It has groove. We kind of listen to what we do. We get in a room and just make demos and then go back and listen to it and pick them apart. And after picking them apart, I found we were kind of going to a kind of a hard 90s sound. But not that that's what to expect, but if anything, it's bluesy. It's, Dave Engstrom's got a southern flair to his guitar writing. So I'm hearing some ZZ Top type licks in there, and I think it's just going to be bluesier. Yeah, I really maybe just a little bluesier and just a little more, like I said, a little more shuffle. I don't want to say danceable like disco, but definitely a soul vibe. Like I always try and incorporate like Ike and Tina Turner kind of drum beat underneath and sneak it in there, under the heaviness, because I find it interesting. So I'm hoping that's what we're going to come off sound like. That's definitely what we want.
Well, we're very excited.
Yeah, but still it's heavy rock. Not that's not going to be the Jackson 5 record or anything, but although that grooves too, but that's kind of, I think, what to expect. If I didn't go off too long on that.
No, we're excited, for sure.
Yeah, and Does the band have any plans for going on the road this summer?
Not this summer, no. Just doing the record. It's been a while since John has released anything solo. And the way the biz works is John is going out with Hermano for 2 weeks in Europe. They're doing Desert Fest and a bunch of cool festivals in Europe for 2 weeks because they put out some product last season, and there's a buzz going on. So, without product, John has to pick and choose them, when he gets offers, and he can't just basically, in a nutshell, you got to put a record out, man, if you want to, if you want to come back to Europe in Australia, you got to put a record out. So, and that's what he wants to do. And, when John gets the hair up his ass, it goes, it don't stop. And it's not very often, but when he does, it's like, let's do it, man. Let's jump on it. Oh. So, that's kind of our predicament now. So we're looking to get the record out, get in the studio in August. And once that's done, then it'll be 2027. We'll go to Australia and we'll go to Europe and we'll do the States, to push the new record. And that's I hope I can stay alive that long to be around for. I'm getting old here, man. I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to turn 60 that year. All right. I better do my sit-ups, and keep in shape.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I want to switch gears with you here. You spent 5+ years drumming for desert rock pioneers, Yawning Man. Tell us a little bit more about your transition from being known as, that Santa Monica, Venice sound into going into that desert rock sound.
It took years of evolution. Excel, we had some glorious years during the hardcore days. Early 90s, things started to change. The word alternative was thrown around a lot. So we tried to kind of segue, find a way to harness those two. Because we saw it coming, and we were already, fans of what was going on in LA with Jane's Addiction, and Chili Peppers were blowing up with Faith No More. And so we were trying to blend the two. We always had help from Mike from Suicidal Tendencies. He put out our first record, and we got connected with Caroline. So, of course, Caroline carried a lot of the Seattle bands. They carried the Sub Pop catalog. So that's when it kind of all came into all vision. Like, things are changing, and even they were telling us, punk and hardcore and thrash is cool, but this is going to be coming around the bend here. So, eventually, to make a long story short, Adam, our guitar player, started playing with Infectious Grooves. Mike was, saw his talent and gave him a leg up, and my Excel bandmates were against it, but I, for some reason, just thought, Adam, go do it, man, because you can get a leg up, and then you can pull us up, and this is all relative, and it's all with Mike, so it's all cool. Then Mike wanted to manage us, and half of the band didn't want Mike to manage us, and Adam just approached me and said, Mike will help us out if we get our own band going. He really wants to help me, Adam, get my songwriting out there. So I went with Adam, and then we went that's when we started My Head, and did that through the good part of the 90s until that train kind of ran out of steam. And I kind of just left LA and didn't want to get a 6-string guitar band with a DJ, which our managers were telling us to do. Yeah. Because our managers at that time were the managers of Korn, and Korn was willing to take us on the road if we changed our, not us, but they were willing to take a band out that would fit their thing. And we weren't willing to go that route. So we disbanded. And I went on a hiatus, and then eventually ended up moving to the desert. And that's kind of how I joined the Dwarves shortly after I moved to the desert. It was a palm desert, and through that, knowing that Nick from Caius and Queens of the Stone Age had played with the Dwarves, and I realized, okay, I'm kind of in this circle I'm kind of in a cool spot now, with these people, and I'm with the Dwarves, and I'm meeting more people, and it's all kind of tying in together, So my decision to move to the desert was, at first, to be honest, when I first moved here, I was in a project with Jay Younger from White Zombie. Mm-hmm. I moved out here. The bass player from My Head, Dave Silva, was living out here. And he had called me and said that he knew that Jay Younger was looking for a rhythm section. And so I moved out here, and Dave and I played with Jay for a while. And that kind of went away, kind of lost its fire. And that's when I ended up joining the Dwarves. Did the Dwarves, up until 2014. And that's when I joined John's band. I had already been living out here and knew a bunch of people at that point, and just saw that it would be the right thing to do. It was local. Dwarves were a tough gig because we were based out of San Francisco and LA. And it was the drives, and it's a grueling tour schedule too. So I just thought to join with John and stay local. And it's been kind of peaceful ever since then.
For sure, man.
Can you talk a little bit about the drum and transition from, going from thrash, hardcore to more of that desert stoner rock sound?
I've been asked that before, and it's funny, when I look back on it, when I got my first drum kit and was playing along to music, it was almost like one day I was playing along to whatever Zeppelin and Rush, and Iron Maiden or whatever it was. And then just like overnight, it was all Slayer and Metallica and Dark Angel and Exodus. And it was just getting that speed going. I had already started playing along to Stones and Aerosmith, and I already had that kind of that swing underneath me. But then I learned how to play fast, playing along to Punk and Minor Threat and Black Flag and whatever, and taught my right hand how to do those 16th notes at Ramones thing. So I always saw myself as a blend of the two, especially when we got in Excel. I was able to play fast, but then also kind of play behind the beat instead of on top of it. And that kind of added like a kind of a different kind of groove to it. I don't know. But I always had that rock thing underneath me. It was almost as if like there were times playing fast, I would think I'm not playing in the right band. I don't want to play fast. At some point, I don't want to play this fast anymore. I do want to play hard and heavy, especially when the grunge thing came out. Then it was like, oh man, that's where I want to be. In a flannel, smoking pot, banging it out.
Absolutely.
But that was kind of the way I was just can balance the two, and I can always go back to playing fast. I did reunion shows with Excel several years ago, and it came back. I got back on top of it, but while I was playing it during some of those shows, I just knew, like, God, I now I know why I stopped doing this. It's just, I appreciate fanfare, but people jumping up on the stage and running around and to me, it becomes like, I don't know how to explain it. I like when people just stand there and stare and gawk and kind of shake their heads. and go, yeah. But when it gets hyper, like a Suicidal Tendencies show, I kind of lose my shit and just think, all right, I'll just let one of these guys play and I'll go. The show's over. Yeah.
Well, before we dive into Excel a little bit more extensively, I did want to touch upon My Head. That was a band that you played in for quite a while, but for whatever reason, you guys never really got that spotlight put on you. It seemed like you were always the supporting group or act. Great album, great music. But talk a little bit more about the band and why just kind of the critics didn't give you the acclaim that band really deserved.
Yeah. Yes. Somebody once called it 11 flavors of vanilla, which I kind of agreed with. It took us years to get that record out. And in the beginning, we were kind of a little more progressive and heavy. By the time we completed writing all the songs, Adam was listening to the Association and the Beach Boys and was incorporating more melody into his stuff, which we found interesting. Adam wrote most of the songs on the record, and where at first we thought, well, we're all just going to go in there and make a record together and write songs. Well, no, Adam just at some point just started flooding out all these wonderful tunes. And I was just like, well, yeah, we'll do these, this will make a great record. We got signed to Imago Records, which was a label that had put out Rollins's Liar single. And that was a big thing. And Imago was a label created by Terry Ellis, who was the Ellis half of Chrysalis Records.
Oh, okay.
And so knowing he had signed, with Jethro Tull and all these other bands, we were just, I was blown away that he wasn't paying attention to us. So we hooked up with Imago. They folded before our record came out. The our A&R guy, Matt Aberle from Imago, went to Capitol and he took us with him. Capitol wanted some radio hits, and so that's when I think Adam went into the Association Beach Boys kind of Simon and Garfunkel mode to crank out some radio hits, and then that's kind of where we ended up, and we recorded that record with the producer named Stephen Hagler, who had done the Pixies and Clutch, and he did it to what was on the radio, what was modern, although we kind of didn't know what was modern, and I debated it at times. I didn't think it sounded metal enough or hardcore enough or whatever it was, but he had that radio sound that he got for us. And it just got lost in between Everclear and Marcy Playground and Luscious Jackson. We toured with Alice Cooper and the Scorpions, which was a blast. I mean, for me, but I had to do the whole tour knowing, well, touring with My Heroes is one thing, but I don't think we're playing to the right audience.
Yes.
And we got put on the Warped tour. And once again, it's like, we should be on Bonnaroo. We should be going to Europe. I just didn't know. And these were high profile gigs. We were just playing in front of the wrong audiences and we didn't get seen by the right people. That Warped tour we did, Deftones were on it. And it just, the girls were melting in the front row over Deftones every night. It was just like, oh my God, these guys are just going to destroy, take over. We saw it. No Effects was on that bill and everybody was flipping out over them. We just thought, whoa, we're in the wrong venues, we're the wrong crowd. With all due respect, it was like, it's funny how you get hooked up with a major and things can go everything can go wrong, even though you're supposed to feel like everything's right because you're on a major label, but everything they're doing for you goes against what you know is right for your band. But you're getting paid and you're going along with it. Like, okay, I trust them, and and we'll make a video. This is kind of that. Yeah, it really, that corporate. It's true what they say about getting signed to a major. Things change.
But my question to you is, how does a label mess that up? I mean, how do they put you in the wrong? I get in a wrong audience. I mean, there's got to be somebody with a brain in a major label saying, okay, we got to fit them in the right audience. How do they mess that up?
They have you do things like sign a bunch of Fender Squier guitars, sign 20 of them, and do a radio promo for my head. Call in and win for my head, signed my head guitar, and stuff like that. And we're looking at each other going, people don't care about a signed guitar from us. What is this? Why couldn't we just have gone out to a Tower Records and played in the parking lot? This money that they're throwing at these silly promotions, we could be putting them to what we knew is what were street methods of advertising, and which was basically playing for free and playing really well, and maybe playing with another band who other people associate with, and makes it all look cool, and that memory stays, and not some in-store sitting behind a desk signing your record and nobody's there, and all the people from the label are running, and their little subsidiaries that they hire, and their little minions that come and just smile at you and go, everything's great, you guys are doing great. And you're like, no, we're not. We're not. This is dumb. But you can't say that. You got to play the game. You got to play the game and hope for the best.
It's frustrating to hear. Yeah. I can't imagine how it's frustrating for you to have to sit through that torture.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. You feel like, oops, oh crap, guy, we could have signed with indie, and none of this would be existing. Of course, this was all right when the internet was starting, so there was a lot more confusion there too. Like, hey, Beastie Boys have a web page, have you seen it? Like, what's a web? What? Huh? And then you go look at them and go, well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, this is the future. So we're kind of standing around going, okay, so what do we do now? Meanwhile, meanwhile, the smart, like for example, our managers at the time, they had Korn. With the money they were making, they were investing in the internet, in whatever it was, they were investing in the internet, and that, like, they had the foresight to do such, not just advertising, but investing in audio players, or the search engines and all that stuff back then. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going back to
that's all right.
The 90s, the sour 90s, where everything just went wrong.
Well, I mean, it is 2026, so it's the 30th anniversary of the album, Endless Bummer. Were you satisfied with the end product, and what was your favorite track off the album?
I was satisfied. Of course, me being a drummer at the time, the drums. I was satisfied. My favorite track on the record is I'd probably have two. I like Sonrisa, and I like Nesbeats. That's that hard one. Carnosaur, the Carnosaur, the first track on the record didn't come out like the demo. And that was my only thing. I think maybe it was a little sped up a little bit. I don't remember us playing it that fast. And I think it got mixed a little faster than normal. But I thought Killer Hair should have been our single as opposed to Humbucker. I love Humbucker too, obviously, but I thought that Humbucker should have maybe been a second single. For some reason, I just thought Killer Hair, because it had that Nirvana-ish vibe going. But see, that's the thing. Had it come out when it was supposed to, maybe Capitol would have agreed with us. But by the time it came out, what was happening at that time were the teenage bands with the Silverchairs and the Ugly Kid Joes and the stuff like that, and the Caius, that kind of stuff was kind of hitting at the time. So I think they tried to go in that direction in hindsight with Humbucker, which was cool. It was cool to make the video at the observatory that I had gone to when I was a child in elementary school, the Griffith Park Observatory. And I was like, wow, I'm back as a rock star. I was here as a child, those whole Hollywood Hill dreams. But that was fun. But, what's even funner though is like if I'm at work, sometimes we've got TVs and they're hooked up to Google, and I'll tell them, here, check this out. And I'll put on the Humbucker video, and my coworkers just go, what the hell? Dude? And they look at me like I'm from Mars. I'm like, hey, it was a long time ago, man. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they just flip out. Like, why are you working? It's like, oh my God. Why am I working? You got a few days, I can tell you about it.
Yeah.
Well, definitely want to change gears on you to Excel. And, as great of an album Split Image was in 1987, The Joke's on You, 1989, that thing will forever be one of my favorite albums of all time.
How cool!
Yeah, and you know what the crazy thing about it is I got the poster framed in my room, and I'm gonna send you a picture of it.
Right
today. It's badass. But with that being said, compare that album to what was going on at the time, because it was a big skate punk scene going on in Venice, Santa Monica, and you guys had the image, you guys had the sound, you guys had one of my most favorite songs of all time, Tapping Into the Emotional Void.
Right on.
Yeah,
the commercial Tapping Into Emotional Void.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that era, that album, that song? It was my senior year in high school. It just was fantastic. It still is fantastic.
I agree. I drove down to meet Dan after we had a magazine called The Recycler that everybody looked for bands in, and somebody gave me a Recycler ad for Excel, and I went and met Dan at Venice Beach. He gave me the Excel. What's the name of the demo? Personal Onslaught demo, I think. Personal Onslaught. And I remember going to my car and just slapping it in my tape deck and listening to it going, oh my God, I want to play for this band, I heard Split Image and just really wanted to be with them. Plus, I can hear in the quality of the drumming that it was a little quiet, and maybe he wasn't the best drummer. It was Adam's cousin, Evan. So I thought, well, okay, and joined Excel. We played a couple shows. We played around, and Mike offered us to record on Suicidal Records and gave Dan a budget. And so our job basically was to write 5 more songs. We were going to use what was on the demo, and then we wrote more songs. At that time, I know Adam was listening to Fishbone a lot, and I would spend time with Sean at his house, and we would listen to Trouble and Candlemass and Crucifix and hardcore records and St. Vitus, and kind of wanted to be heavy, Sabbathy and doomy, but also fast and hardcore. So I think that's how the other half of Split Image, some of the songs we wrote, kind of have that sound where they'll start off real heavy and then they'll blast into hardcore and go really fast and then groove. So that was kind of the formula for Split Image. Other like that we had those, we'd Never Look Away and Split Image, Insecurity and Spare the Pain.
Yep.
Those were already written. So yeah, we added songs like Social Security and trying to remember the rest. That was that. And then when it came time to do the Joke's on You, well, there's some Chili Peppers in there. Obviously, there's some Jane's Addiction. Everything that was happening in LA at the time, we were just vibing off of, blending it with fast. But I think at that point, I'd kind of lessened up on the double kick. And we were feeling the alternative vibe coming on, but not really knowing. We just knew, the Cult was big. And it was kind of like we tried to tone it down a little, I think, on the Joke's on You, but stay heavy and hard. And I think it worked. I think the production on the Joke's on You is a little bit bigger.
No, definitely.
But that was kind of the formula for those records. Definitely. Dan was really into the Chili Peppers. I mean, but we were all young, we were all young, and all we knew was that girls liked Faith No More and Chili Peppers and Jane's Addiction. So we wanted that attention. Meanwhile, the whole metal scene in LA was going on right next door, and we hardly paid any attention to it. It was booming. It was almost like the enemy, like, God, they're getting all of the people, but thank God there's this new scene. There's these new bands that are bringing crowds. So we wanted to kind of emulate that. We were just kind of growing up a little bit too. We'd played enough times at Fenders and we saw the potential and what could be. So we were kind of going for it, unbeknownst to us.
Well, the Joke's on You to this day, it still has like that cult status of listeners to it. It still kind of holds the test of time. When you guys were in the studio creating that album, did you know that you were onto something special when the album was completed?
I do remember Dan saying, we're not going to undercut the budget on this and put money in our pockets. We're spending it all. I want this record to sound amazing. I want it to sound good in 30 years, that's kind of was what he said. He's like, I really want this one to stick around. And guy, even when it's been remastered and remixed, it just explodes when I put it through my system. And I'm an audiophile with my speakers and amps, and I love to listen to it through my system because it makes my system sound good. That's how good the production is. It just, everything jumps out. The separation and the drums are just, oh my God. So Randy Burns, the famed speed metal, thrash metal producer, did our records, and he did Megadeth and Suicidal Tendencies first record and Dark Angel and some classic stuff.
Oh.
And he knew his shit, and a lot of credit goes to Randy.
Fantastic. Well, some of our listeners might not realize your work as a songwriter. MTV used one of your songs back when I guess MTV actually mattered, but nonetheless, can you talk a little bit more about your transition from a drummer to a songwriter? And was it a struggle for you? And what show did MTV use your music for?
The show that used it was Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory.
Oh, cool.
That was the show. It was one episode. I guess it was an episode that repeated over and over throughout the world, because at some point, and I have to attribute that all to Blag from the Dwarves, Blag Dahlia, who, and just the Dwarves in general, because when I first joined the Dwarves and was staying with them up in San Francisco, and they were their guitarist, or our guitarist, he who cannot be named, as he is known. He took me in the writing room and showed me a keyboard, and he said, "This is where you can write. You can write stuff if you get bored hanging around. So I'll just hit this button in here and it'll record, and you can just put ideas down." And I said, "What do you mean write? Like write songs?" And he goes, "Yeah, everyone in the Dwarves writes. So just whatever it is, just doesn't have to be Mozart, you know." And that was the first time I ever thought, oh, wow, so these guys actually welcome ideas. So then that's kind of how I started, you know, when I went home and I got myself a little rig and started recording on my computer and started sending stuff to Blag when he liked a couple of my tunes and recorded them in our recordings. And through his connections or through whatever he does with his publishing, I don't even think he called me to tell me. I just got a royalty check in the mail one day when money was low, and I thought, oh my God. And I called Blag and I said, "Hey man, did you push this?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, that went through. Yeah, man, that's you. That's your song. Congratulations." And he's like, you know, enjoy it. He's all, just hope it runs for a while, because once it kind of, you know, it's how these things work. The stream right now, it's streaming hot. It's not gonna stay that way. It's gonna go back down, or it's gonna turn into pennies. But enjoy it while it's there. And he's like, you know, he said, don't forget, I'm getting 20% of that too, though, because I published it through him. So he's like, you could be more, but I'm getting 20% of it. I'm like, hey, whatever, man, you know. But that's the thing, you know, I trusted in him with the publishing, and he made it happen. So that's something I could put on my, you know, hey, I'm a published songwriter on a TV show, you know.
Absolutely.
And I'm the least suspected person to have something like that. But that's how this business is, you know. You think, who got what? Whoa, you kidding me? Wow. Okay, I guess anything can happen. And for once it happened to me. You know, I'm that person. They go, who? Seriously? Jesus. Okay. Good for Greg. Uh-huh.
Well,
but
regardless, it's super cool.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, man. It's one of my, it's another one of those stories where people go, bullshit, you know. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I'm like, you can look it up, you know, it's in there for about 6 seconds. It's amazing, you know, 6 seconds of your song and just a quick clip of a half-hour show on MTV, and they got to fork out royalties. It's just amazing how the business works. I never dug that deep into it, but in this, I don't care. It's like it worked out in my favor, and Blag's too. So that's how I can now, when I go online, I can say, I'm a published songwriter, you know, like Paul Simon and James Taylor, you know.
Hey, for sure. All right. So I have one last question for you, then we'll leave you alone for the evening. You worked with Mike Muir extensively over the years with Psycho Myco, Infectious Grooves on the Masparacho album, and the Suicidal Tendencies, Friends and Family Volume 2 albums, respectively. Tell us a little bit more about your relationship with Mike Muir, because, you know, Mike Muir, he seems like he's kind of a mysterious guy of sorts. You really can't get a hold of him for an interview. You know, he's a character. But he's just kind of like this guy that's kind of elusive. You can't get interviews with him. You know, to talk more about Mike.
Mike walked in on me in the dressing room at L'Amour's Brooklyn, and I was getting hot and heavy with some New York groupie, and he came walking in, and I'll never forget, I turned around and looked at him, and he looked at me and looked up and down and nodded his head. and just shut the door and had this look like almost like he had never seen that before. It was a real bizarre moment. He was on tour with us with Excel, and that's when he was kind of scouting Adam for Infectious Grooves. He toured with us for a week, and he was introducing us at our shows, and I was so stoked to have him with us. I was, oh my God, Mike Muir's touring with us, traveling, giving us pointers and giving us street cred. But I'll never forget, he came walking in and just looked like, whoa, and he walked out, and I never forget thinking, why was he so surprised by that? I mean, this is why we're out here, isn't it? But his thing is very business.
Yeah.
He was very, he kind of looked over us, and maybe he saw that as not business type of behavior, very irresponsible. And that's how I kind of, from then on, knew how Mike worked. He's very professional. I was lucky enough to play on an Infectious Grooves track that Robert Trujillo invited me down to play on. And as chance would have it, David Silveria from Korn was also there. And that's when I met him, and he did a track. I did a track. We ended up on that record. I think at the time they may have been scouting for a new drummer. Because it was kind of like they killed two birds with one stone type of deal, and Infectious was looking for a new drummer. And I know they went with Josh Freese after that little audition recording thing. And then when the Psycho Michael thing came around, he wanted to record a record, but I remember Mike saying he wanted it. He doesn't want it fancy. He wanted it old school Venice punk. And it was at that time that I knew that I would probably never play in Suicidal Tendencies or Infectious Grooves, because Mike has a meticulous flair and taste for drummers. And I just knew I wasn't probably technical enough to play with him as much as I wanted to. I knew you've seen his drummers. I mean, he's got the best drummers in the world, so, and then not to discredit myself, but that just, I just knew I would have to practice a lot and be very disciplined, to play with Mike further than what he wanted for Psycho Michael, which was just that old school Venice punk sound, which is, like a Discharge beat, just a D beat. And some heavy rolls and a little bit of groove, Venice groove. But Mike was very helpful with Excel. He even managed my head for a number of years and got us the Imago deal, and really stuck by us. By the time we got to Capitol, they wanted us to switch management. And unfortunately, we had to tell Mike that he wasn't our manager anymore. And that's always been kind of a bruise. Having to tell Mike Muir, hey man, we're going with the guys from Korn, and,
right.
it was just kind of a crappy situation. After all the years of being stoked, being around them, involved with them. But yeah, definitely mysterious. He's just always been that way. He doesn't speak much, but when he does speak, it's very prophetic. It's a lesson. It's something you listen to and you learn from it. I mean, whether you can make sense of it or not, it always just comes out as like, well, here's something to think about and something to remember. Throw these things at you. He does that in his shows too, kind of like a preacher. But there's been times festivals that we've been on that Suicidals played that I've wanted to go knock on their door and say hi, but I think probably best I don't do that. I don't It's a show. No need emotional reunions now.
Fair enough. Well, Greg, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Guy, what? Well, Garcia Band, we're playing this festival up in the high desert of Joshua Tree.
Cool.
Or I should say high desert of Coachella Valley in Joshua Tree. And we're playing this cool festival. It's called Mojave Experience. We're playing it in March 21st to be exact. And it's going to have a lot of cool older new bands, stoner bands, psych bands, bands like Earthless and Dead Meadow, and we got Mario Lawley and the Rubber Snake Charmers and Yawning Man's playing. So Garcia Band's playing. And that's what we've got coming up. That's coming up next month. And that's pretty much our only gig. Like I said, then we're going to go and cut the record in August and plan for next year to do stuff. But that's what we've got going on. And for anyone in that vicinity, wants to go be hip for the night and take some psychedelics and be out in the middle of the desert, but it's beautiful out there and it should be a fun gig. But Guy, that's all, man. And then the new record and life goes on after rock and roll. You can't be bitter about the past. You got to just be happy for the opportunities you were given and the places you visited and people you've met along the way. And just because if not for this music scene or for rock and roll, none of that would have ever happened. So there's nothing to be bitter about for old cats who I met at one time. No, it's all time.
Yeah.
It never leaves you. You always did it and it's always there. So just enjoy it and get on with life. Go to work. Some of my old friends, they still don't want to work. It's like, no, you got to work, man. You have money.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, just get over it, and life goes on. So that's kind of my 2 cents to all my colleagues who are still out there pissed off because it didn't happen.
Well, this is how things are going to work out. Once Jeff, the editing wizard over here, gets everything cleaned up, he'll make us all sound like $1 million. We want to thank we want to thank you so much for your participation.
Yeah,
hey, man, it's a pleasure. It's my pleasure, man. It really is. Thank you for giving me the attention.
For sure.
Yeah,
all right.
Hey, man. So this is what we're going to do. Like I said, Jeff will get it all cleaned up, and it'll probably be ready right before your show, probably out in the desert, and we'll get it out for you. And I think I'll still be down in Jamaica when that happens. I'm not quite sure. We're taking off for Jamaica in a couple weeks, but regardless, Jeff will get it out, man.
Yawning Man. Well, damn. Have a great time in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Shit. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, you guys. Thanks, man.
Take care.
Again.
Great one.
Thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.